Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at New Jersey Digest. If you're looking for the latest in food and culture in our state, you have to check these guys out. Their website and social media is filled with top-tier curation like their coveted guides on restaurants and places to explore in New Jersey. Visit them at thedigestonline.com or on Instagram at NJDigest.
Entrepreneurs and small business owners, are you feeling overwhelmed by lack of capital, growth challenges, or personal branding? You are not alone. UCS Advisors is here for you. We're professional capital raising advisors committed to helping you secure funding and grow your business. Are you ready to impress investors? Check your investor readiness with our free 45-second quiz at ucsquiz.com. We believe in you. Visit ucsquiz.com and start your success journey. And remember, always be willing to achieve your greatness.
Just a little under an hour until I hit the stage for another show. Driving on this road feels like forever.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome
Back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Cam. We are here with Pete Candia, the food and drink editor at NJ Digest. We're here at Osteria Crescendo. Thank you to them for hosting us. Pete, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So this is like a long time coming, finally getting you on the show, which I'm excited about because, you know, like you do a lot of stuff for NJ Digest that I think I kind of do like peripherally because like I'm going to restaurants and doing stuff like that for the show. But you're obviously like diving into them a little bit more. So I'm excited to kind of get some of your favorite spots.
Yeah, I think we're also similarly just big fans of New Jersey as a state.
That's
as a
true.
Whole.
Yeah.
So it goes much beyond food for me. So I'm just excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah. So as we kind of like go through this, I want to learn a little bit more about you first, just because you're the editor or food and drink editor for NJ Digest. And obviously like that carries a little bit of weight, I would imagine.
Apparently it does,
Yeah. Well, you made it onto this show. That's pretty good. You're going to wind up being like episode 93 or 4. So you're getting close to some milestones right there.
Almost the century mark.
Yeah, getting there. So so you told me off mic that you went to culinary school.
Yes.
So was food, like growing up, food is something that was really important to you?
Yeah, it's really strange actually because I was a really picky eater growing up. And I even still am to this day. There's like things that I'm extremely picky about. Obviously I'm adventurous too, but
Sure.
like, for example, I hate eggs. I don't eat eggs at all. It doesn't matter what chef is making them. I won't eat it. I'm completely averse to them. When I was a kid though, it was a lot more extreme. Like I wouldn't have like condiments on anything. My family used to call me no condiment Pete. But at the same time,
That's a good
I was very enamored by food always. And my grandma used to watch me and we would watch Emeril together and bam.
Yeah.
And I like fell in love with it. And from that point forward, I was a TV kid, so I would fall asleep watching TV every night, which has lasting effects on my ability to focus on things. But
Sure.
I would fall asleep to Channel 29 Food Network every single night.
Yeah.
And when I became a little more like in middle school and like a little more aware of it, is when like Chopped came out. And that was like, I mean, if I had to guess, that's probably the biggest show that Food Network's done to date. I mean, it was really popular, and I would watch Chopped every single night. And then it kind of developed into, I would see the baskets that they would get, and I'd be like, oh, this is what I would do with it. And then once my parents started leaving me home alone in the summer, when I was old enough to stay home alone, any chance I could get to like turn the stove on, and I wouldn't tell them either.
Of course.
I would do it. So I used to take like, we'd have like the brown and serve sausage patties in the freezer, and you microwave them, right?
Yeah.
But I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do it on the stove. And I remember one time I was like, you're going to start a grease fire. And I was like, okay, I didn't. I never did. So
yeah. Unnatural.
That was the start of it. And then in high school is when I was a junior in high school is when food YouTube really started to take off. And I was, of course, like not posting, but as a viewer, I think I was in really early for that. And I used to watch this channel called Chef Steps, they're still around, and they're a really cool food channel, and they still are not as popular as they deserve to be. And that's what got me into like actual chef cooking and actual like professional cooking and using these fancy, sous vide machines. And this is when that was like a foreign concept.
Sure.
And it was junior year. I was like, fuck it, high curves. I was like, I want to go to culinary school and I want to own a restaurant. So I decided that's what I was going to do. And senior year, I applied to CIA, the Culinary Institute of America. I also applied to Johnson & Wales. And I heard back from CIA when I was literally like September of my senior year.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. That's decided. So the rest of the senior year, I was just kind of chilling. You know, I got good grades, but I was taking really easy classes. You know, all my friends are worried about getting into school. I'm already in my dream school. So the following October, because CIA has very weird start dates, so I didn't start till October. I started with culinary school, and it was very unique because I didn't have any professional cooking experience.
Right. I was going to ask, like, have you worked in any restaurants like prior to going in high school and stuff?
The only experience that I had was I worked at a pizzeria, mainline pizzeria in Little Falls, New Jersey. Shout out Don Maizano, and that was my first job. And I worked counter. And he knew it, and I knew it. I was always walking 10 feet back into the kitchen, not the pizza section, which is interesting because I got really into pizza later on.
Yeah.
But always walking back to where they make the sandwiches and the dishes, the dinners. And anytime Dom would let me, I would, I'd whip one up. And I'm very like, if it's something I'm interested in, I'm very absorbent.
Yeah.
So you only have to show me once.
Sure.
And I started doing that. And then at the same time, right before my senior year of high school started, I also worked in like a pool snack bar.
That's great.
And it was
Some of the best food comes out of a pool snack bar.
But it was very interesting because the snack bar was owned by a bagel shop.
Yeah.
So I was making like Taylor ham, egg, and cheeses.
Sure.
I was making like grilled chicken wraps, and like it was like real food. I mean, I was making chicken fingers too.
Of course.
But during Adult Swim, when the kids weren't allowed to be in the pool, there would be a line, I swear to God, 45 9-year-olds deep. And I'm just like knee deep in chicken fingers. And that's when I got my first taste of like a real like cooking rush. So I think it did prepare me for school. I definitely wasn't the most experienced person in my class, and I definitely wasn't the most lost person in my class. So I think I started from a really good standpoint because I didn't feel above any of the information. A lot of people were, I already know this, but I also didn't feel like anything was too
like
foreign of a concept.
Yeah,
for
sure.
me. I mean, I religiously watched cooking YouTube, so I think I kind of did subconsciously know a lot of it already.
Right. No, that's really cool. And it's just interesting to me, like, because, I mean, as you probably know, like, we've had a bunch of people in food and different aspects, like some chefs and different things like that on the show.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to me kind of to see, like, how their career paths go. And a lot of them, the Food Network is a big push for a lot of them.
It's crazy. I mean, it's almost like wild because I think back in the day before cooking TV was really, or media in general was really a thing, it was, it was that profession that like the delinquents would do, or like, for lack of a better word, but, unless you went to France where there was, or Europe where there was, there was a real profession, but in the States, I mean, it was like, that's where like the bad kids worked, and then, Food Network becomes a thing. And I think it got a lot of people interested in food.
Well, sort of glamorizing a lot of things.
It glamorized a lot of things for
what
better.
actually goes into it.
For better or for worse. Yeah.
Because then like now everybody, wants to do it.
But I mean, I think it is a net positive at the end of the day, that cooking is now in the US seen as a legitimate profession and not, a second option or third option or whatever.
Absolutely. Okay, so you go to culinary school.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now you do not work at a restaurant. I don't know, as far as I know. But you're writing about food. So can you take me through so you're done with culinary school, you graduate, you do your thing, and now you're the editor for NJ Digest in Food and Drink. So take me through that. What is that, 4-year span?
Yeah. So I have a very interesting path to where I am today. And it wasn't entirely by choice, but I mean, I'm still happy that I ended up where I am. So when I was really little, I was diagnosed with a progressive muscle wasting disease. So I have what's called limb-girdle muscular dystrophy.
Okay.
So unlike when people think of muscular dystrophy, they think of Duchenne usually. So with Duchenne, people are wheelchair bound from a very young age. Their life expectancy is very low. It's a very tragic disease.
Sure.
And what I have is more rare, but it's also more mild in the sense that it doesn't affect you during your childhood.
Okay.
So I was diagnosed really young. I was diagnosed in 6, so I was 8 years old. But at the same time, it wasn't affecting me at all. Besides having to go to, more doctors than my friends and get blood work done and whatnot.
Right,
and they would, elevate or they would evaluate my levels of, whatever. But so it was kind of always, I didn't really pay attention to it besides the fact that I would go to the doctor, and I wasn't embarrassed by it or anything because it just wasn't affecting my life. And at the same time, I kind of just completely put it in the rear view. And I still wanted to go to culinary school, even though I knew that it would have an effect on it. That, that's just what I wasn't going to do my second option, which I didn't have a second option. So, this is what I wanted to do, and I was going to do it. And I didn't know when it would start to take an effect, and I didn't know how long I'd be able to cook, but this is what I wanted to do. And I figured I could do, with the knowledge, I could do something else, whatever. So my freshman year at CIA, I'm still pretty much fine. Looking back, I wasn't thinking about it at all. I didn't notice any changes. Looking back, there's probably little things here and there that now with a clearer mind, I can look back and be like, oh, that's why I did that. But it was actually in between your first and second year at CIA, you do an externship. So you basically go and work in the real world, and you can do it at really famous restaurants and do it unpaid, or you could do it at a not as famous restaurant and get paid. And I was like, well, I want to get paid. So, and I was like, I want to work in Manhattan. I have the luxury of living this close to, the greatest city in the world with, some of the greatest food in the world. So that's where I'm going to go. So I had my externship at Lupa Osteria Romana in the Village. And it's a Roman restaurant. So that's where I got really into pasta. And it was while I was at Lupa that my body started to, kick it into gear. Well, so I guess the opposite of kick it into gear.
Right.
But,
yeah. So you're now seeing more.
Yeah, so
more
it was very strange because it was just boom, one day it was there.
Yeah.
And the way I noticed it, the first place I ever noticed it, and to this day, the place where I noticed it the most because obviously I'm still walking around, whatnot.
Right.
We had a prep kitchen downstairs, and we used to prep. And then we would bring a tray of all of the stuff that we need to, have upstairs. And, the first 2 weeks I was there, whatever. And then one day I started walking up the stairs. And I'm like, why is it a little more difficult today?
Yeah.
Brush it off. I continued walking up the stairs. I was still, able to. Because fast forward, stairs are virtually impossible for me now.
Right.
Unless I need to use a railing. I need to pull myself up I'm a 90-year-old man.
Yeah.
But at the time, I could still do it, but it felt harder. And it probably didn't look weird to anybody, but it felt harder. And I got up to my station. I'm like, that was weird. I'm cutting, and then 10 minutes later it clicked, and I was like, oh
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, oh shit. That's okay.
Yeah.
So then I started dealing with that. And at the time it was still mild. I was completely able to hide it. So, or at least I think I was. So that's what I did. I hid it from everybody. My really good friends knew just because they had already known I had it.
Yeah.
Because they were my really good friends, and I was diagnosed so early, and obviously my family knew. But other than that, man, I hid it from everybody. And I went back to CIA, and mind you, I'm now dealing with this new thing, and it's getting worse because it's progressive, but it's, it's slow. And I was like, well, I'm not going to drop out, So I finished CIA, which honestly, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And
and the place where you need to use your body to do all stuff.
It's physical work.
Sure.
At that school, they it's set up like you're working in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I finished it out, and I'm really happy I did. And then but at the time again, I decided, okay, well, I need to have a plan. I kind of like to write. Maybe I'll go into food writing. And that's when I started to think that. But after school finished and I graduated, I wasn't going to just go look for a writing job. I didn't have any writing experience. So I was like, I'm going to go to school for journalism, and I'm going to work. I still can work in restaurants. So let me because if it were up to me, man, I'd still be working in restaurants.
Yeah, right.
I love what I do, but my first love is cooking.
Yeah.
And it always will be. And so I started working in restaurants. And I switched to front of house because I was like, I think that maybe serving bartending will be a little easier on my body. It's not.
Right.
It's the same
It's the
amount of
same,
turmoil.
sure, yeah.
But and then I started working here. And I worked here the day it opened, Osteria Crescendo, and shout out to them for letting us shoot here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love places that let us shoot in their space.
Yeah, and they're really good guys, group of guys here.
Yeah.
And I worked here on day one because, it was all luck, basically. I went to Viaggio, Robbie Felice, the owner of here's first restaurant, for the first time, November 5th, 2018. And I went there and ate dinner for my brother's birthday. And our server walks by, and my brother asks me what something on the menu is. He asks me what a cartoccio is, which is like a cooking method where you wrap a protein, usually fish and vegetables, in parchment paper, and you cook it in the oven, and it basically steam cooks it. Mm-hmm. And they also, in French, they'll call it cartouche. But so my brother asked me what that is.
Yeah.
He'll always ask me instead of asking the server. And so I answered it. And our server, Lewis, was walking by, still works here. Was a Viaggio, now he's here. He walks by, he's around my age, and he goes, "How the fuck did you know what that is?" And I'm not someone like, I went to culinary school.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, I like work in restaurants. I went to cooking school. Like, I worked in an Italian restaurant. Like, I know what this is. And, unbeknownst to me, he goes back to the kitchen to Robbie, and he goes, "That kid out there just fucking schooled me." And next thing I know, they're sending food out. And for whatever reason, I guess they were trying to poach me, basically.
Sure, yeah.
And
that pays to know things.
So then I started going to that restaurant regularly because it was by far the best restaurant in a 15-minute drive from me.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Right.
And I started going there a lot. And one day, Dave and I, my brother Dave, we went there, just me and him, and we did the chef's tasting. And that's when Tommy, who you met, he's the director of operations for the entire restaurant group.
Right.
He comes up to us and he says, "We're opening a new restaurant in March. I want you to work there." And he's like, "I know that you serve and bartend." He's like, "We're going to be doing a really cool cocktail program." He's like, "I think you'd really like it." So I was like, okay. And so I was here the day that they opened, and I did that for a while. And then the reason why it's relevant is that it's through Robbie, actually, that my boss, Mike Scavoli, the editor-in-chief of the New Jersey Digest,
Who's in the background? What's up, Mike?
he wrote an article about this restaurant before it even opened.
Yeah.
Because him and Robbie have kind of knew each other from other things that he's written. And one day I was driving Robbie home, and he was like, he knew I wanted to be a writer. He didn't know about my situation. Again, I hid it from everybody.
Yeah.
But he basically said, "Do you want me to see if I can get the guy who wrote about here to hook you up an internship?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I'm in school for journalism at the time now. I'm at Bergen Community College. And I started an internship with New Jersey Digest, and kind of just loved it. And I think I did pretty good because I was kept on. And I was in my third semester at school, and the credits from CIA are weird. So I would have had to end up if I wanted to get a journalism degree, I would have had to end up doing basically 4 years of school.
Okay.
Like I got like 9 credits to transfer from CIA.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit, first of all. I mean, like, you should get history credits for a lot of those classes. You're learning about the history of colonization and why ingredients are. I don't want to go on a tangent about that, but
That's okay.
And it's fine because I did the best thing I ever did and dropped out of community school, community college. And I actually really liked that school too, but I felt like I was a decent enough of a writer where to become a great writer, I just had to work.
Yeah, you got to get some reps.
And,
I would imagine you're not writing a ton of papers at CIA.
No.
Yeah,
no,
I would
no.
imagine
And
not.
the one English class that I took, I got an A+ in. So.
Oh, there you go.
And I said to Mike, I said, "Do you need me to have a journalism degree?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Okay."
Perfect.
And that was that.
Yeah.
And then, some months later, I did not write a lot because I was just interning. And then the internship finished and I stayed on as an intern. But I wrote very seldomly, and I'm still working in restaurants at the time. And, a lot of things are going on. And eventually COVID hits, and that was what I wasn't going to quit restaurants on my own. I was too addicted to it. Like it's like a drug. And even though it was like physically and mentally demoralizing for me, you know, I'm like kind of depressed because I'm dealing with this, you know, thing that, which by the way, want to make a note of it. What I have, only 80,000 people in the world have.
Oh.
So it's like 0.00001% of the population.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something
that's
crazy.
wild.
So I'm like, the world's against me, you know, like why do I have to deal with this, blah, blah, blah.
Right. The one thing that you wanted to do,
Yeah.
basically just like ripped out from under
Yeah,
you.
exactly. And I'm still getting by in restaurants, but it's getting a lot harder. I don't think I'm able to hide it as much anymore.
Yeah.
At this time, I actually had told Tommy, who you met, Tommy Voter, director of operations of this restaurant in Viaggio. I ended up telling him because I used to bartend here on Tuesdays, and every Tuesday I would come in and there'd be a case of liquor on the floor that we got shipped. And what I used to do is I would start juicing lemons, and I would purposely put myself in the weeds. That way, when it got closer to open, Tommy would just sick the task on someone else.
Yeah.
And then one day I came in, I didn't have to do any prep because I worked on Sunday and did all the prep. So I was like, well, I can't pretend to be busy, you know, whatever. And I got in, I came early, I remember. And I went to Tommy, I went to the office, and I just told him, and he just said, okay. And I was like, it was like the best answer I could have ever gotten for the situation. You know, he believed me. He didn't think I was always nervous that people were going to think I was like being lazy, you know, or like, now I don't worry about that as much anymore because I do appear, you know, I walk a little funny and I walk slow, and upstairs, you know, I look ridiculous. And, but then, you know, I could pass. So I was like, I always just thought I was always scared people were going to think I was not kidding, or like I was exaggerating or something.
Milking it.
Which I
would imagine not. Yeah.
do not do.
Right.
If any, I do whatever the opposite of that is.
Yeah.
And he just said, okay. And it was like awesome. And I was like very happy. And then of course I still didn't start regularly telling people for another like 3 years down the line.
Yeah.
So then COVID hits and it forces me to leave the restaurants, and because I wouldn't have done it if that didn't happen. I just wouldn't have done it. So now I'm sitting on my ass collecting unemployment, and I'm coming more to terms with the fact that I am disabled, and I'm becoming more disabled by the month or day or however you want to look at it. And I started writing a little more, and then eventually Mike said to me, we want you to kind of just be our like food and drink editor. And I said, okay. And then we kind of took it slow from there and kind of just eased into what I'm doing now. I actually did start working. I came back here in 2021, and I worked here for like 9 more months, just bartending. I told Tommy, I said, I don't want to be on the floor because I don't want to have to walk long distances. In the bar, I could just pivot.
Yeah, right.
I could just turn around, pivot. Still not easy, but I just like doing it, and I need the money. And my doctor thought it would be good for me while I was still able to, because it is
like keep
good.
it moving. And
yeah, it's good to stay active within your limits, I guess. So I did it for like 9 more months, and then I started full time with Digest, and I left the restaurant behind. And so now I just write.
Yeah.
So that's the long version of how I...
That's great. And that's a perfect amount of time, because we're going to take our break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about more Digest
More
stuff.
fun stuff.
More fun stuff. Not that wasn't fun. That was great. No, I really appreciate you sharing that.
I've never talked about it publicly.
Yeah.
So,
well,
like, literally ever.
I mean, people listen to this, so a lot of people are going to know after that. But, but yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. I think it's just like a really cool kind of trajectory from like viewing like food media to now being like a part of food media too,
and I
think is cool.
Well, we'll talk about
for sure
after the break.
So so we're gonna take a break. We're gonna get back and we'll talk about more stuff. We're gonna talk about maybe some like recommendations, some of our favorite places. I think that would be cool too. So this is the Greens Food Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Kim. We're here at Osteria Crescendo with Pete Candia, the food and drink editor at NJ Digest. We'll be right back.
Voted one of the top 100 jazz clubs in the world, Shanghai Jazz in Madison, New Jersey has been entertaining its customers for almost 30 years with world-class live music, great food, and a commitment to hospitality that creates an exceptional atmosphere. Plus, if you're in the mood for a creative cocktail and incredible vibe, be sure to check out Encore Speakeasy, located downstairs in Shanghai Jazz. As one of my favorite restaurants in the area, I personally guarantee you will have a great experience. Check out the music schedule, the menu, or to make a reservation, head to shanghaijazz.com. The Mayo Performing Arts Center is the heart of arts and entertainment in Morristown, New Jersey. MPAC presents over 200 events annually and is home to an innovative children's arts education program. To see Empac's upcoming schedule of world-class concerts, stand-up comedy, family shows, and more, head to mayoarts.org or just click the link in our show notes. Bored of going to the same park? Want to try a new local adventure? Well, then check out njspots.com, your home for finding a new spot to discover right here in New Jersey. With dozens of maps to check out, local hiking spots, family-friendly places, and seasonal suggestions, NJ Spots is waiting for you to find somewhere new to explore. That's njspots.com.
All right, we're back for segment 2 of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Ham. We're here at Osteria Crescendo, who's hosting us today with Pete Candia, the food and drink editor of New Jersey Digest. So in the first segment, we learned all about your background, and that was really cool to kind of see like your life trajectory, which is really what this show is all about. Like we just tell people's stories. How long have you been food and drink editor at NJ Digest?
Year and a half.
Okay. All right, so that's like a little bit less than I've been doing.
2 years.
Sure. All right, we'll say 2 years.
We'll say 2.
I'm coming up on 2 years of this show.
I started writing with them in 2019 as an intern.
Right.
2 years as this title.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm sure that you've been to a lot of places in New Jersey to eat and drink.
Yes, and at the same time, there's a lot of places I haven't been to.
Of course. There's so many places in the state that
greatest food state, probably in the country.
Oh, hit me with that, because like people. So there's people even in the culinary world that are here in New Jersey that shit on New Jersey food, which I think is wild.
So I'm very prideful of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Everyone knows it, and to an annoying degree. But I'm not just saying it. I do think, of course, it is a little subjective. I haven't been to a ton of states.
Right.
I mean, I've been to a good amount, but I think if you're going to talk like per capita food,
Yeah.
find me a better one. I mean, we have an array of cultures. People would say, obviously, the immediate answer is New York.
Right.
There's a whole state that's about the size of 8 New Jerseys of New York City.
That have nothing in them.
Which has great food. There are good foods up there.
Yeah, of course.
But New Jersey has good food from brim to brim.
Yeah.
And we got the best pizza in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that like New York has some pizzerias that are more famous or even maybe, better than your average New Jersey pizzeria. But I think if you walk into a random pizzeria in New York and you walk into a random pizzeria in New Jersey, the New Jersey one's going to beat out the dollar slice shops, at least in terms of quality.
Sure.
In terms of taste, in terms of consistency. Bagels are just better here.
Yeah.
It's not even an argument. I don't care what anyone says. And then obviously we have things like, delis and we have Jewish delis and Italian delis. We have Taylor ham or pork roll, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We have just so much different food here. I mean, there are certain things that are harder to come by, but even then you just have to go to the right spots. I thought for a while that it was hard to find Korean food because I really like Korean food.
Yeah. I don't think it's that. I don't think that's that hard.
No,
Yeah.
I was just stupid.
Yeah.
You go to Richfield Park, you go to Palisades Park, you go to Fort Lee, and then if I live in Union County now, Edison is filled with great Korean food and Shanghainese food and just really cool stuff. So there's a lot of good Indian food down there too. There's everything. There's everything.
Yeah.
Then
Then,
there's
like,
not much more for me to say about it. That's really
and that's what have been like my favorite thing about Jersey and doing the show. Obviously we get a lot of different types of people on the show, like from different cultures, different backgrounds, but they were all from the same place. And so you just get like so many different from there, you get so many different kinds of food. You know what I mean? Like we had this one guy on who owns a place in Boonton. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Eye to Eye. It's an Italian-Indian fusion.
Really?
Which is sick. Like we ate during that episode and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I didn't really know if I liked Indian food or not.
Yeah.
But it was so good.
Yeah.
Like wild. But I think like that's it speaks to kind of just like the creativity and like the different types of cultures that kind of exists here.
New Jersey's just a pure melting pot.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's what it is, and that's what it will always be, and that's what makes it. So I love it here.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
And I think it started because I like food, so I like all the food here. But it just goes beyond that for me.
Yeah. So take me through maybe like when you first start, do you have kind of like when they're like, hey, we want you to be the food and drink editor, and you're like, oh shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so then from there, did you kind of have like a plan of like how you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna be the next Pete Genovese or some other dude.
No plan.
Yeah,
No.
just like we're just gonna go to
Kinda like,
places and see what's up.
No plan. I'm very actually probably bad in that regard, as I don't plan well.
I don't plan either. Dude.
But when I
It's
think
not-
of a story and we do it, I do it quick, and at least I think I do it well.
yeah,
But there are, every now and then, I do my most brainstorming at like night. I'll be like laying in bed, not thinking about anything, and then I'll be like, hot dog story, and then I'll text Mike the next day. Oh, we're doing a hot dog story, and then so we did.
Yeah.
We visited 3 famous hot dog joints in New Jersey, and it's fun, and people like that. I mean, I love eating fine dining, obviously, but even more so, I love the like working class New
it's the
Jersey places. Rutt's Hut is like
I love Rutt's Hut.
I mean, I've been eating Rutt's Hut since I was a baby.
Yeah.
My parents, grew up on it, so I've just been eating it forever. And then, you got pizza places that are like that. It's just sweet. It's so interesting how, like, tonight I'm going to, a nice restaurant, Common Lot in Millburn.
I just booked Aaron on the show for the end of July.
Really?
Yeah,
I'll mention it to him tonight if I see him. But and then tomorrow I'll probably go to like the White Diamond in Clark, which is like a slider shop.
Right.
It's been there for like 80 years. I really like that aspect of this state, and I really like writing historical pieces that dive into the history of food.
Yeah.
So for example, I did a piece called where are you from in New Jersey?
So I live in Morristown right now.
Okay.
Grew up in Pequannock, and then moved to Sparta right before high school. My
Gotcha.
parents live up there, but yeah.
So unbeknownst to me, before like 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about Trenton tomato pie. So
I went to school at TCNJ. Cool. Right out. Yeah.
So Trenton tomato pie it's a pretty, it's not a bar pie thin, but it's a thin crust, and it's got just crushed tomatoes.
Yeah.
And low moisture mozzarella on it. And there's a couple famous places. One of them is called Di Lorenzo's in Robbinsville. It used to be in Trenton. And then the other one is called Papa's in Robbinsville. And it also used to be in Trenton.
Yeah.
And, they're not really rivals, because the people that go to Di Lorenzo's are always going to go to Di Lorenzo's.
Sure.
The people that go to Papa's are always going to go to
Ride or
Papa's.
dies.
But, I thought to myself, there's these 2 awesome pizzerias or tomato pie, shops, I guess if you want to call it restaurants. And they're literally like a half a mile from each other. What's the history behind that? And so diving into stuff like that is what I really like. I find out that Papa's is one of the first pizzerias in America. It opened over 100 years ago. And as Di Lorenzo's came along, down the line in the 40s, I think 1946 or something like that.
Which is still a really long time.
Which is still a really long time, yeah. And, not much has changed. They've changed locations a couple times. And Di Lorenzo's has a couple locations now. But it's just cool. And then there's other tomato pie places on top of that, even new ones that are still opening because it's becoming popular. Pizza in general in New Jersey is really, I don't know if you're familiar with like Jersey pizza joints on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. I'm in that group.
So am I.
Yeah.
And I think it has like 90,000 members now. I probably joined it when it was 10,000 members maybe. And it's just a closed Facebook group where, anyone can join, but
Sure.
people just post Jersey pizza joints.
Yeah. And they fight.
I learned, I thought, they fight a lot. I thought I knew a good amount about New Jersey pizza.
Oh, yeah. When you go in there, you don't know shit.
I knew about Essex County pizza. I grew up in Cedar Grove near Montclair area.
Yeah.
I knew
My
about
girlfriend lives in Montclair. Is from Montclair.
Yeah, so I knew about Essex County pizza.
Yeah.
And that was really it. I didn't know about anything outside of that. And I quickly learned that, and I didn't even know what Trenton tomato pie was. I felt like a fool, but this is what I'm supposed to be like a professional at. But that's my other thing with what I do is that like always learning,
Yeah.
like always looking for something that I don't know about. I don't like to think that I know everything about New Jersey food because I don't. And like we said before, there's so much here that it's impossible to be a true Jersey food connoisseur from end to end.
Right. And that's what I think it goes back to what you were saying before, like how diverse it is with food. It's like, people are like, oh, you should go here. And I'm like, I do an episode a week. There's only 52 whatever, because I take a couple weeks off that I can possibly do. And we don't just do restaurants. You know what I mean? So it's a matter of just like finding ones that have like good stories or cool people or people that are going to engage and like that kind of stuff. Like, what were some of the first places that you did write about?
The first cool restaurant that I ever wrote about, probably like the second or third story I did in my internship, was I wrote about South and Pine.
Okay.
But I more so wrote about Leah rather than South and Pine. It was
Sure.
more so a story about her career trajectory, and she's, I mean, your listeners would know because you did an episode with
Yeah,
her.
we had her on the show, yeah.
She's an awesome person, has a really cool career path, and, you know, that was the first, and that's when I would take, like, a week to write something. You know, now I bang them out, but
Yeah.
I really was like, I put like my all into it, and it was cool. And it was the first time I ever been to South and Pine, and it was just the first time I ever wrote about something like that. And that's when I finished that, and we did it with a professional photographer too, so it was really cool. And when I finished that and that got published, I was like, I can do, like, this is something I want to do and like to do, and I'm able to do it.
Right.
So that was the first cool restaurant we did. And then right after that, like you were saying, like, what kind of things do I like to do? I went to a butcher shop after that.
Cool.
I don't like to do just restaurants, you know. Butchery is something that I'm super passionate about. I loved doing butchery when I was in school. So at CIA, they make you work in restaurants before you graduate. It's the last thing you do. You work in the restaurants that are on campus that the public goes to and spends real money at. So,
Right.
you know, the stakes are at least kind of high. You know, it's not. And you get randomly assigned to what station you are, and I got assigned to butcher in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even touch a stove.
My girlfriend's also a butcher.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, so she worked in kitchens, was a butcher, worked in a lot of butcher shops, but she sells beef now for like
Awesome.
a grass-fed foods thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And yeah, I fell in love with just like fabricating meat and fish. I think it's all really cool, and I think it's a really valuable skill to have. You know, you can go to the grocery store and buy a whole, you know, chuck roast, let's say, and if you know how to break it down, you get a lot of stuff out of that.
Yeah, right.
For a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
Because you're buying it with no labor cost added to it. You know,
Right.
You're doing the labor. So I wanted to write about sustainable butchery. So we wrote about a place called Dark Pines in Jersey City, and this is back in 2019. And then the story I did right after that, again, I was like, I just didn't want to stay in one place. And I did want to show off a little bit the fact that my whole thing always was, I went to culinary school, and then I worked front of house and bartended and served, because I was like, if I'm going to write about restaurants, I am going to do everything in a restaurant for at least a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know what I'm talking about.
100%.
I think that's the only fair way, not the only fair way, but I think that's the best way to write about restaurants, because I understand the vocabulary they use. I understand the work that goes into what they use, and I think it's noticed sometimes. You know, if I write about and I'm not saying that my writing's better than other writers. That's not what I'm saying. But
right. We could say it.
what
You're the only food writer we've had on so far. We could say it. 100%.
yeah, best.
The best one so far.
The best one so far, yeah. But if I write about a restaurant and then another writer writes about the same restaurant, or they write about it first and I write about it second, whatever, there are times where I guess, uncover or come to a different conclusion about something and focus on something a little more heavy, and they might focus on something else a little more heavy. And I think it's usually just a product of the fact that I've done the work. So
right. So you have a different appreciation
my brain,
for it.
No, it's not even that. I think my brain just gravitates towards different things. So
I get that.
Like Dave Viana, for example, and
love Dave.
Awesome guy. And his restaurant Lita. The food was sick.
Sick.
Yeah, we did I think we were the first piece on that restaurant.
Yeah.
I think. Before they even opened.
And that's the best meal that I've had at a restaurant of his. Was there.
It's my favorite restaurant of his.
It's insane.
And all of his restaurants are good.
Yeah, right.
Did you have the chicken?
I don't remember if we ordered like a whole bunch of stuff, and then we just kept like stuff kept coming out from the kitchen. They're like, oh, this is from the kitchen. And we tried like so many things. And like the last thing he brought out was like, oh, this is my mother's shrimp turnover, popover, whatever recipe. And I was like, Jesus, like this is because like just a different style of food. Like obviously, like his other places are like fine dining, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And this is like an elevated, like
closer to his heart,
cooking at his house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the reason why I brought that up is because, you know, obviously I'm really interested in the food and I'm really interested in, you know, his identity. He's Portuguese and he's finally cooking food that he grew up eating.
Yeah.
But what I was more interested in than anything is like the
I think I know
the unique like work structure at Lita.
Yeah.
Where there's 10 people and 5 of them serve and the other 5 cook, and then the next week they switch and all the tips are pooled. And for me, someone who's done both sides of it, I was like, I told him, I said if I had a better body, I'd be working here. I'd hand you my application right now.
Right.
And so that's when I wrote about that. It was something that I really wanted to focus on because I just thought it was important and really interesting to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely agree with that. And that was definitely something that stood out for me and us when we went there to eat, because it was like, yeah, we've eaten at his restaurants before. We've always had great experiences, but this, like, there was just so much that was different and unique of an experience about it. And it's really cool.
And I think a lot of people look at it and they want to scoff immediately and say, that's not going to work.
Sure.
You know, it's not the way things are done.
But every trailblazer gets scoffed at.
1, you have to try it.
Exactly.
And 2, you showed me the math.
Yeah.
I think it's going to work.
Yeah. Okay, so before we start running out of time here, because I don't want to like go too far.
Yeah.
We have to ask for like let me ask you this question before we do your favorite places. So I'm sure, because I get probably pitched, 10 times a week for episodes on this show. I'm sure you get pitched quite a bit for articles in NJ Digest. Is it sometimes hard, let me ask this question the right way, to like parse out the types of places you're going to have on, and then if you go to a place and you don't like it, is that hard to kind of separate yourself from, like, because you know what the work that went into that place and that kind of thing, and kind of like dancing around that a little bit?
So what I always tell people that ask me about my job, I'm not a food critic.
Sure.
I don't write negative reviews. I don't really even write reviews. I kind of do, but I write stories.
You review your
restaurants.
experience. Yeah, right. Or I guess maybe not. Yeah.
If I go to a restaurant and it's not good, I'm just not going to write about it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to write a poor review. I'm not going to bash this business and these people's livelihood. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
If I was getting like Pete Wells money, maybe I would, because he has no problem bashing a restaurant.
Sure.
But that's just not what I am interested in doing. And we, for the most part, just go to restaurants that we want to go to.
Yeah.
And which is cool. And there's kind of 2 ways we do it. Sometimes in Lita's case and in Leah Gashion's case at South and Pine, and a couple, other restaurants that we're doing professional shoots at, we set it up with them.
Right.
So we set it up with them. We come in off hours and I interview them just like this. And, we talk and then they make us the food and we shoot it professionally. And then the other side of that is sometimes me and my girlfriend will go out to dinner and it's good. And I take some pictures on my phone.
Yep.
And then I do a write-up.
Yeah.
So there's two styles of it that I do, but neither are ever like critic work. I'm not going to write, 2 stars.
Yeah, right.
What does that even mean?
Exactly. Yeah, right. Okay, so before we wrap it up, because we got about maybe like 10 more minutes to go.
Cool.
Or less. But what are some places, and maybe they've been places that you've written about, maybe they've been places you just haven't had a chance to, and you're planning on whatever, places that are some of your favorites that kind of like stand out for you?
Okay. I'm going to start with ones in South Jersey.
And work your way
seem to get a lot of shit that we don't write about South Jersey, so I'm going to shout out some wonderful South
We also
Jersey.
don't do a lot of stuff on South Jersey on this show.
I love South Jersey. More people live up here. That's just what it comes down to. Okay. Exactly. There's just more
It's easier for me to get
here.
the places up here.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Nettie's House of Spaghetti,
Okay.
Tinton Falls, New Jersey, is one of the best meals I've had in recent memory.
Full.
The best meatballs I've ever had. And I'm Italian.
I'm sure you've had plenty. Yeah, right.
My grandpa,
Yeah.
go and pick the basil from his backyard, and they were good. Mine are really good too. I make really good meatballs.
Yeah.
Okay. I can cook. These were really good. And they do a dish that's like a hot vinegar chicken.
Oh, yeah, we had that.
And it's really good. I always order chicken at restaurants. That's my other thing. I think it's the best test of a chef's prowess is to order the chicken.
Yeah.
It's when it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's really bad.
Yeah.
Also down there, obviously you got Lita, got Heirloom Kitchen, and you got his other restaurant, Heirloom at the St. Laurent.
Yep.
Asbury Park, we love Tallulah's in
I
Asbury
also
Park.
love Tallulah's. What's your go-to at Tallulah's? Do you have a
The
go-to?
Beekeepers.
Yes.
I'm
Love it.
also like
Yeah.
I'm like a plain pizza person.
Okay.
Like I
also am that way too myself.
I think it's the best way to judge a pizzeria.
Sure.
One thing about me is like, yeah, I'll eat some cool stuff and whatever, but like I mentioned it before, but I'm still picky. Like,
Yeah.
I like simple food, and I always have, and it's what I like to cook, and that's what I like to eat. Also down in South Jersey, in Asbury Park. I guess some people wouldn't even consider that South, but you got,
We'll call it South.
got the Black Swan, which is like a
I haven't gone to the Black
elevated
Swan
pub. I
yet.
think Gordon Ramsay was just there.
Yeah, because James Avery worked for Gordon Ramsay.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
Just in general, I think that anybody listening, Asbury Park is a great food city. It's a great drink city.
Yeah. It's my favorite place.
It's awesome. You got Lovesick there, which is really cool. And then Homesick. They're next to each other. One of them's a wine bar. The other ones are like a restaurant. And then if we're going to talk about North Jersey.
I mean, it's hard. You're going to leave something out.
Here.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to leave something out here. Obviously, if you've never been to Rutt's Hut, go to Rutt's Hut. If you've never been to Steve's Burgers in Garfield, go to Steve's Burgers.
Okay.
Lodi Pizza in Lodi, go there. There's so much. Star Tavern.
We're going to go to Star Tavern tonight, actually, I think. That's where we're going to dinner.
Really? I was there last Friday. No, last Wednesday I was there. I was there last Wednesday, and I was there the week before.
Yeah.
Another place. Have you been there?
I've never been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get it well done. Get a Coke.
Great.
Because it's RC Cola. It's not Coke. So it's
Elevated.
It's elevated. Got that real cane sugar, I think.
Yeah. Are there places that, you talked about some of the more formal write-ups that you've done. Are there places that you are really excited to do something like that at and just maybe hasn't been in the cards yet? So I'm sure if you reach out and you're like, we want to do a write-up and we want to do it legit.
Well, okay. I don't have anything on the immediate, on deck circle right now. And if I did, I wouldn't say because I don't want anyone stealing my ideas.
I totally get that.
But there are a ton of restaurants in North Jersey that I would obviously love to write about. And we do a lot of visiting to restaurants right now because last year we just did our first version of it. And I have to shout it out. We did a top 25 best restaurants in New Jersey list, which, there's a couple other publications that do top restaurants lists. And I don't even think, I'm going to be cocky, I don't even think it's a question. Ours is the best one. I think ours is the most informed. I think ours is the one with the least amount of, we always say geographic appeasement. We're not gonna favor North Jersey, but we're also not gonna throw.
Yeah.
We're not gonna let a worse restaurant beat out another one because we need to cover that area of the map. So we do a lot of visiting for that purpose, just to see if it's. We have a little Excel spreadsheet just to see if we can move it over to the to the pass column or to the thumbs down.
Right. Well, if you need somebody to do some, drive arounds and test places.
Yeah, I think
hit a brother up because I would definitely do that.
And then before we finish up or whatever, I do want to shout out one thing that we did. That's one of my favorite things we did since I've done this job.
Yeah.
And it didn't get the attention it deserved. Me and Mike did actually my uncle gave me the idea, but we did a fake write-up for April Fools on Vesuvio from The Sopranos as if it was a real restaurant. And the way we structured it was that Vesuvio just burnt down.
Yeah, you're right.
There's Nuovo Vesuvio. And we went hard. We set up my dining room to have a white tablecloth that we ordered off Amazon, and I made dishes from the show.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he puts something in front of them and they go, "What the fuck is this?" He's like, "Sausage stuffed quail." And I was like, "I'm gonna make it." so we made the sausage stuffed quail. We made the cannelloni and burrata.
Yeah.
And there's an episode he puts it in front of Carmela and they're like, the April woman, I can't think of her name. She's Jackie April.
Yeah.
That's the son. she's like, what is this? And he's like, burrata. And we're like, okay, so we need to do that. And we had our, we had someone shoot it for us.
Yeah.
And we wrote a fake review, and it was really funny. Like, it was really good satire, and I don't think enough people got it. And a lot of people, this was like gold. Someone commented, there was a lot of comments like this, but this is the best one. They said, because we made a reel for it too, like an Instagram reel, and they commented, it'd be nice if you can give us the address. I Googled it, and all that came up was a place closed down in Bellevue, and a bunch of shit about The Sopranos. And it's like,
Nailed it.
You're right there.
A great search. Yeah.
You're right there. So
I love that. That's so cool. But it's just like it goes to the whole thing of like, you know, encompassing all different.
for me, it's like the best because I got to cook for it too.
Of course.
So,
Right.
And I got to put at the bottom food made by Peter Candia.
Yeah, yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah. I love that.
More mock write-ups.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you hit some of my favorite places in New Jersey, so I think that that's really cool too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that this was really great. I really appreciate you jumping on with us. Of course, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up, but I'm sure
I could go.
we will talk again at some
We'll
point.
talk about just baseball next time.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll talk about that. But yeah, so thank you so much again for coming on,
Thanks for having
sharing all your stuff, your story personally, which I really appreciate, and obviously your recommendations, other places that you've been to in the state that you really like.
I'm really bad with coming up with places off the top of my head.
It's totally fine. This will be like
You'll just have to read my stuff.
yeah, you'll just have to go read NJ Digest, which they can get at njdigest.com.
The digestonline.com.
The digestonline.com.
And then we're at
That's my
NJ
bad.
Digest on Instagram and now Threads.
Yeah. Do you have your own personal stuff?
Yeah, so my Instagram page, which is where I post most of my work and whatnot,
Excursions.
is it's Pete, not Peter, Pete, period, Candia, Candia.
Great.
Follow me there.
Awesome. So we'll make sure that we put the NJ Digest stuff and your stuff in the show notes. People could just go and click it so they can go check that out. Obviously, NJ Digest was one of our sponsors a while ago too, which was kind of cool. But again, thank you so much for doing this with us today. So this has been the Ingredients for the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Cam. We were here with Pete Candia, the food and drink editor at NJ Digest. Thank you again to Osteria Crescendo for letting us use their space here in Westwood.
Westwood.
I almost said Wildwood. but
Basically
that's not
New
even
York
close.
State.
Yeah.
It's like 15 minutes from the
But it's still New Jersey.
Exactly.
So thank you again for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Up here all I see, crowded lights on